Well, good evening, Marylanders. I'm Mia Mason, and I'm here with our wonderful national correspondence host person from No Dim Left Behind. And tonight we are going to be honoring ourselves because we're both veterans. So let's dive right into this because it is super important that we understand exactly what a veteran is and understand exactly where we came from. So, Richard, tell the audience a little bit about yourself.
Well, I, like many others where I'm from in Logan County, West Virginia, when I turned 18 years of age, there was only three options. And it was dig coal, sell dope, join the Army. So I had family members that had spent decades in the coal industry, and they told me that it was not something that, had a big future. So I went into the military, and I spent the next 24 years in the military. Served in some amazing units and had some amazing troops. Did 2 tours to Iraq, one in Afghanistan, and then was also on the Global Response Force when we responded to the earthquake in Haiti. And then when I retired in 2014, I got into politics. And, it's one of those things where, when you're in the military, you don't really think about the leadership on the civilian side. But when I retired and I come home, I was shocked at I can't say leadership, the lack of leadership, where everybody on every corner had their hands in the cookie jar. And it seemed like that's all that they cared about. So I started challenging them. And eventually, 2 days before my Senate race, I was struck in the back of the head with a pipe. They rolled me over unconscious and broke 8 bones in my face with brass knuckles. But 2 days later, I won my seat. And I was able to make West Virginia the 29th state to become legal for medical cannabis because of, the 22 veterans committing suicide a day. And that was a major mission of mine to be able to give veterans a non-addictive form of pain management. And then the following year, it was my speech that lit the match on the teacher strike. So that's where I'm at, and that's what I do, and that's why I do the things that I do.
Awesome. Well, I started out my life in a military town, not even knowing it was a military town because it was basically a time of Desert Storm. So I started my life out as a dishwasher, sitting on a couch, watching NASCAR circle around, and my stepdad saying, "Hey, what are you going to do with your life?" And I was accelerating. I worked my way up from dishwasher to line cook to, almost becoming an assistant manager after becoming, the back room, storeroom prep person, and doing everything I could to being a cashier at the place I was working. And they were like, "Yay, sign up and join the military." And I was like, "Okay, Army or Navy?" And I was like, it's just like the Army Navy game. Like, what am I actually going to do with my life? And the Army was like, "Hey, you can become a combat engineer. You got the skills. Your ASVAB is good." And I was like, "Wait a minute. Let me research this a little bit more." And I started we didn't have Google. We didn't have good internet. It was like dial-up. Yeah, you get blown up, combat engineer. I know, my job now is to protect those folks. But back then, I was like, the Navy petty officer was in the hallway and seeing me come out and said, "You look like a sharp cookie. How about 3 meals a day? Go see the world and be safe." And you know what? Honestly, it looks really good on me. And I enjoyed my time. And that was up until 9/11. I was over at AIMD Oceana because after I finished all my schools and stuff, I ended up right back at home. And I saw the towers fall on the TV, and we ended up going overseas to Afghanistan and fighting. We were on the USS Kitty Hawk, and then after that, we, had to leave there, went to Iraq twice. And then I was like, okay, I'm kind of done with the ship. We are surging all the time. We're continuously at war. When is our country going to stop? And then I went to the East Coast, and they were like, okay, well, the West Coast is so amazing. How do we continue to do this? And how do we train other people to do it? I'm like, I know how to do it. I've been there. I've done that. So we did that. We trained everybody how to do it. And it really put a lot of hurt and morale on me because we were doing it. And then it led into what the Louisiana coast has just went through. They went through Laura, but I was there for Hurricane Katrina. Something like 5 times worse than what they just went through. And to see that devastation and then see what just happened again with what previously was Harvey, I understand exactly what was going through those people's mindset. And we have a congressional candidate who's down there who thankfully is safe. And, you know, he's not a veteran, I'm not sure, but we keep everyone, you know, alive as we can in the military. And that's why when I switched over to the Army, I decided to be something more braver, more stronger than I ever could imagine. I decided to be, you know, above what I could ever push myself. I didn't expect to, you know, go into the MEP Center on Friday and get the best job. I got the worst job. So never go to MEPS on Friday and expect to get the best job. And then I had great leaders in the Army and some bad ones. But once I finally got the DC and the Maryland, I was able to excel again. And I had to fight for my retirement. And that led me to becoming into contact with other great leaders to allow me to pursue a political career like you, Richard, and find other folks in our communities who fight for our communities with a passion so that we can serve others. And I think that helps everyone. So let's dive into the first question that we have. You know, what is the best way for the average citizen to honor a veteran and thank them for their service? What do you think about that?
You know, I was thinking about that, and you know, I think it's different between veterans. I mean, you know, some veterans don't want to be. You know, it's kind of, you know, we don't feel that we have done anything like it's not like we're looking for people to say, "Hey, thank you for your service." You know, they don't need. I mean, it's nice that to me, I like it when I see people doing that for Vietnam veterans. Because when Vietnam veterans come back, when they come back from Vietnam, they were treated horrific. I mean, you know, called baby killer. You know, a lot of them went into the restrooms at the airport and threw their uniforms in the garbage and walked out acting as if they wasn't in the military. But one of the great things about Vietnam veterans is they have made sure that nobody will ever return home after serving their country and be treated in the manner that they were. So every single time that I ever come home from Iraq or Afghanistan, I would always land in like Bangor, Maine. And we would get off the plane, and I mean, there was a long line of people that were, here's a cell phone, call your wife, let her know you're on friendly ground. Here's a bag of cookies, here's some chips, you know, and everybody was shaking our hands. And what we really quickly realized is that every one of them had Vietnam veteran pins on their hats and on their shirts. And that was why. And that was something that was special because that's what we got. And they never got it. So, you know, to me, I don't think anybody has to run around here and say, you know, thank you for your service. I mean, the Uncle Sam did me some, you know, it helped me. I mean, I become educated. I was able to see the world. So to me, I thank Uncle Sam for giving me the opportunity to experience the things that I've experienced. So I appreciate the military. But when it comes to Vietnam veterans, you know, I think it's important that everybody, if you know a person that is a Vietnam veteran, always thank them for their service and welcome them home because they were never welcomed when they come back from Vietnam.
I absolutely agree. And even for our Korean War veterans and the ones that are the old Army, you know, the ones that wear the BDU and look at us like, and scream at us and like, what's a training timeout card? You know, they tell us the stories of like how it used to be with hazing and actual training and not this BS of like what it was. You know, I remember like what real physical training was, what real yelling was, what real push was, what real drive was, what real commitment was, and not, you know, just participation was. And I remember like my first couple deployments in the Navy compared to what my first couple deployments in the Army were. And that thank you for service started to grow on me, you know, when somebody said it. And then when I finally got to retire, it really absorbed into my heart, like it made a difference. And then to say it to other folks, it got passed along because it's something that is like a brotherhood for us. And especially for those who were completely disrespected for serving our country, it is owed to them. Yeah. So, we are facing so many issues. I came from a rally this morning in DC. We're veterans. We're not like stopping everything that goes through, but we have a lot of big issues that face our veterans. What are some of the issues that we face on a daily basis?
In terms of veterans, I think a lot of it has to do with, many veterans are getting out of the military and they don't really have a place to go. I think that we have veteran homelessness, but I think one of the major issues that we have right now is the fact that for 20 years we have been bogged down in war. And what people don't realize is that the average veteran, especially if they retire, it's on average that they have done 2, 3, 4 combat tours. And, that absolutely takes a toll on not just their mentality, their physical capabilities. It takes a toll on the families. And that is absolutely something that is, it's hard when a person gets out of the military and we don't have things for them. I know that they said that if you're military, you're a combat veteran, you are priority for hire. But where are the jobs for these people? That's one of the problems that we have is a lack of jobs and a lack of capability to be able to make sure that these soldiers can be trained into these jobs. Just like you were an infantryman. I was a combat engineer. So, we dealt with explosions, and for the most part, a combat engineer is just an infantryman with demo. I mean, at the end of the day, that's basically, I was always in light airborne sapper battalions. So, we wasn't out there, doing, some of that high-tech engineering. We were all about counter mobility, mobility, and survivability, and blowing stuff up. So where are the real capabilities out here that allow people like us to transition and go to jobs more than just your average working at retail, working in restaurants? We should definitely make sure that our veterans have more capabilities.
I completely agree. And that really ties into like the biggest hurdle I had, was that mindset that I had where, I was active duty, go, 5 to midnight every day, that drive that you have to get something done. And then when you're sitting there in a cubicle, you're like, why isn't anybody emailing me saying that something is accomplished? And then you go to their cubicle and they're gaffing off and they're chatting and they're like, you just want to like smoke them and you can't. We're trained differently in the military, and you have to be able to detrain us. The military trains us so well for it, but a TAPS class just doesn't do it. And CBT and the VA doesn't do that. Even if
it's a culture shock.
Yes, even if you're a counter intel person, S6, S1, or whatever else in the military, a supportive role in the military, they really don't train you to actually make yourself a civilian again. And I think that boils down to the mental health of all of us veterans to get us a job that actually is suitable for our skill sets afterwards. And they normally just tie it to education and say, off you go. And that's why I think that, getting us into Congress is going to help us change that. So that, like when I first got out and I was like in that little gray zone, I was like being treated as a number, and I got tired of being treated as a number and getting the screening questions like all the time. Do you feel suicidal, homicidal, and all this other stuff? And I'm like, have a great day. Our 15 minutes is up. And I'm like, we haven't even talked about anything. How am I going to do this? How am I going to do that? That's some of the biggest issues that got fixed under the Obama administration, and now I can't even get an appointment.
Well, I think that another issue, though, is I think that we should have the system in terms of the VA, it should be standardized across the board. Because the truth is that, you can go in some places when you get out of the military to go for your VA disability ratings. And like I said, anybody that watches this has to understand that anybody who spends 20 plus years in the military, I can assure you they have sustained issues with their body. I mean, I've had a foot surgery, 3 knee surgeries. I've had both shoulders operated on. I've had facial reconstruction surgery. And now I've got to go talk to a spinal surgeon because I got 2 discs in my back that are crushed. And the truth is I just had an MRI and didn't really even realize it. But the thing about it is that in certain places, you can go to a VA center and they'll say 10% for your left elbow because you got an elbow issue. You can go to other places and they go, nah, I've seen people at Fort Bragg, North Carolina get 10% for a lost leg, and it's like, this person, a lost limb should basically immediately be 100%, and it should be across the board. If you lose an arm or a leg, if you lose an eye, those should be something that should absolutely be across the board so that we don't have people that find themselves, because I have a lot of friends in the military that I still communicate with. And like I was talking to one the other day who did 3 combat tours as a combat engineer on a bridge. He was a bridge guy. And those guys were bogged down. That is a brutal experience, and especially when you're in combat, and they're fighting for 60%. And I'm like, I've known these people and seen the things that they've done with their bodies, and I'm like, goodness gracious, there's no reason why that person should be 100%. And they're fighting for 60. And then I see people that found themselves, no disrespect to anybody that serves this country, but there's a lot of people that are not in the combat world that might find themselves in Kuwait behind a desk for 6 months of a deployment and immediately, boom, PTSD 100%. Really?
Yeah. And most of the time it's always documentation, and the way that I've seen it with the VA, it's like, oh, you have to have symptoms in both. Like for my knees and my legs and the hip and the feet. So once I get my left foot done, I have to submit it again for both foot and then get re-examined for both feet. And then I'm just going to show them pictures. Here's the right, here's the left. You screwed up, you didn't accept this, and I had to go get it fixed myself. Pay me. And it's just heartbreaking that this could have been fixed like 3 years ago, but now I had to go get it fixed myself, and I'm gonna have to wait another year before I can resubmit.
And you're going to have a hard time in terms of financing that surgery because the hospital is going to want paid, and the VA is going to fight you. The VA will fight you and tell you that since you didn't go through them, it's going to be a pain.
I agree, but thankfully I retired. I'm not like stuck like with all the other veterans with choice or being denied and saying that I should have to go through all the proper steps of physical therapies, braces, and everything else. I did that for 6 years, and they also tried putting me on opioids. And I was like, no. I'm allergic to that. I've been there. I've done that. Y'all tried killing me doing that. No, thank you. It's just, they have to be able to change their mindset. And this is how we will also end the opioid crisis, by creating a corrective action for it. Because, we also have to find a way to get us into the private sector, which leads us into the next question. I mean, we either find ourselves a job or we create a business opportunity for our veterans. What do you think is better, us finding a job or creating a business for our veterans?
I think that I think both are what we need. But being able to help those veterans that are motivated, that want to create businesses and start their own, I think that we need to do everything in our power to make sure that we can help them to be able to do just that. In terms of a veteran that just gets out and wants to find a job, I think that that's one of the problems that we have, is that a lot of veterans don't have jobs out here that relate to what they did in the military. You're a tank operator, you drive a tank. You're a combat engineer. You're an infantryman. There's nobody saying, "Hey, we're hiring. We need people to kick doors in." It's not there. But I think that we definitely should do everything in our power to make sure that our veterans have the ability to get hired when they seek. But we need to provide them with better capabilities. But now here's something else, though. I think there's a lot of things that we could do. First off, I made West Virginia the 29th state to become legal for medical cannabis. I believe that the VA should absolutely, without a shadow of a doubt, allow veterans to be able to get a non-addictive form of pain management, cannabis, through the VA, regardless of what that state that they are in says in terms of cannabis. I think that the VA should be able to override and say, "I got it, it's illegal in your state, but for this guy who is a combat veteran, he is going to be able to get it through the VA, and that's just how it is." Now, if he gets caught selling his medicines, then he loses that capability. Yeah. But for the most part, we need to make sure that we do just that. And then again, too, that could also be a huge job creator that we could state and say, "Hey, we're going to let veterans get priority in terms of licenses and things like that." We could do that. I also think that, we have a serious problem in this country concerning gun violence. I think that there's a lot of things that we could do that could create jobs for veterans. I think that if we put 2 veterans in each school, that would be an absolute deterrent. Not that they're walking through the school carrying rifles and things like that, but they're just basically employed as people to walk the schools and make sure that, if there's fights and things like that, they can break up. I spent 4 years in a classroom when I retired from the military as an ROTC instructor. And that's one of the things that I did. They basically said, "Ojeda, we need you to watch the lunch. And if fights break out, you break them up." And I did just that. And it wasn't a problem. And a lot of times the kids were intimidated by a military presence. They wouldn't fight. I mean, the fights went from up here to practically none.
Your haircut alone just says it.
That's right. So I mean, to me, that's an opportunity for veterans. Another thing, if we was to establish a thing that says, in terms of guns in this country, I'm not against guns. I'm pro Second Amendment, but I think that there needs to be training before somebody can walk into a store and buy a weapon that can kill somebody else. There needs to be training involved, and in that case, we could actually establish veterans creating their own businesses where they train these people in these weapons that they're going to purchase. And then once they get that seal of approval, it says you understand how to use a weapon. So we don't have people standing on the road with their finger on the trigger pointing at marchers walking by. They would know, never put your finger on the trigger unless you're going to squeeze it.
And they didn't even hold it properly. I mean,
no, it's horrible. Horrible.
It was nonsense. You pointed at your spouse, you pointed at the protesters, you pointed at your husband. It was just
he was flagging they were flagging each other.
I know. I was like, they deserve the right to lose their gun, and their man card and their woman card, everything. It was a nightmare. And you're completely right about training and making a business opportunity. In fact, it's a federal business opportunity for every type of licensorship out there, for them to be able to make sure that it gets on the back of their ID card. Because honestly, look, when you go into a gun store, a pawn shop, or whatever, you should just be able to like, "Oh yeah, you got a Texas ID card? Oh, on the back. Oh, okay, yeah, you already own a 9mm. Oh, you own a shotgun? Okay, all right, I have no problem getting you. Yeah, go ahead and look at this gun." And then you just scan the back of their driver's license. It pops up with the ATF, the DEA, and all the other wonderful agencies. And then you're like, scan your fingerprint or your eye or whatever else to verify this person is legit in front of you, and then you make your purchase of your ammo and you go. And you pay to have that convenience. This is America. It has to be that way. And our veterans can do that. We lead the way to do that. I mean, we go through RFI for 6 to 8 hours to get the same gear that we can go to Walmart and buy and walk out with. And then we see some little kid who's doing stupid stuff because Trump says it's a good thing to do, and then the cops walk right by. I mean, like I talked about the other night, we would have decimated that kid But
Oh,
when we have the
yeah,
other people there who are unarmed, that's no game. Our police
yeah,
are armed more than Batman.
yeah,
They can take down Batman.
yeah. Yeah, it's called Rise of the Warrior Cop. It's a book, and I'm telling you, it's exactly what we're seeing today. There's no reason why we should have a town of 1,500 in Moundsville, West Virginia, where the police officers have an armored personnel carrier. Unacceptable.
Yeah. So in Somerset, where we live, most of the entire county is getting washed away because of erosion. Why do they need an MRAP? You know,
Exactly. Hey, send that stuff overseas because ours are raggedy. You know.
I can understand having a 5 ton for like hurricane emergencies and everything else, but you don't need an MRAP to actually go rob a bank or anything else, or emergency preparedness, and then charge us $3 million a year for it or $1 million a year for it. No, no, no. We need to be able to get people to vote, and you only have one polling place open for the entire election. The money is spent improperly, and we have to be able to get to Congress and fix it and tell the state you did it wrong, and we're going to fix it for the next decade. I mean, let's get back on track here. We're going down a bad rabbit hole.
You and me can talk for days on this.
All right. We already touched mental health. Gosh, can our military and government leaders do more to make lifelong military service attractive option? To someone that might be able to help our veterans. How do we get people to join our military these days? That's the bottom line question there.
It's tough. It's really tough because nowadays people pretty much know that if you take that oath to support and defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic, you're going to deploy. And and there's not a lot of great stories about some of these deployments just over and over and over again. I think that the college piece with the GI Bill is important. But the sad part about it is, in this country, military life is it's you and I both enjoyed our time in the military, but
and made
we
mistakes.
We also knew that getting out of the military, there wasn't very much to come back to. And that was one of the reasons. That was another reason why I stayed in the military. Is I'm like, I got a family. The military does take good care of your family. The schools on base are the absolute best. I mean, my children's grade school had a planetarium. The grade school was nicer than the college that I graduated from for my bachelor's degree. So there's you have that capability, and then you realize, like myself, looking at West Virginia, thinking about coming back here. If I get out of the military, what is going to be waiting for me? And there's nothing. There's nothing. So I stayed in the military. But because I stayed in the military, 6 out of the last 10 years, I was basically gone from my family. And that was a tough, and you see a lot of broken families in the military because of just that. It's a person marries their sweetheart, they move on base, and then he leaves for a year, and she don't know nobody, she don't have nobody to really relate to. Maybe they don't have a great family readiness group capability, and it's tough. I don't know if there's a way to improve on what we have in the military, other than the GI Bill, the pay. I mean, I think that as the pay's a hell of a lot better now than it was back when we first went in the military. So medical capabilities. I mean, it's hard. I still think that the military is attractive to people out there. The only thing that it's not attractive to is lazy people. But a lazy person can learn how to not be lazy really fast in the military. Once that guy steps on that bus and says, "Get off my bus," you learn not to be lazy. But I don't really know if we can really expand on that capability, other than, I like the fact that, they're doing things now where you can sign your GI Bill over to your kids. I think that that's something that's very important for a lot of folks, a lot of people that don't have a desire. When I joined the military, I had no desire at all to ever go to college. I had no idea that, 4 years after I initially signed up as an enlisted man, that I was going to get a green to gold scholarship to get out and go to college and become an officer. Uh, but I mean, the ability to sign college over to your family is something that I think is great. But ultimately, I don't know how we can improve on what we currently have.
Yeah. The attractiveness for me was basically, that recruiter saying, that mindset of, this is an incentive of what you're going to be able to do with your life. You're going to be able to make more than what you were going to do versus working in a restaurant. That was the incentive there. What was I going to do? My parents kind of duped me. I came back after boot camp and realized that I had college admission letters that were there. And that was the downfall. But the thing is I can't regret that. What I do kind of regret was not staying in the Navy, but I learned a lot more by staying in the military completely and understanding the vast differences of all of our branches of service and working with all of our branches of service. So the attractiveness for us is for the new folks to understand is that if you have a passion, a skill set, the military has different opportunities in there. You just need to be able to ask, what it is there. You see TV ads of, Go Army, Go this, and now Space Force. Sometimes that just doesn't, resonate anymore. We need to be social perspective, like what you and I are doing right now, but what did we used to do? You can't have us out in the range shooting stuff anymore. What did we used to do, when we were downrange? We were sitting there with locals talking about how to fix their community. What did they need to survive the next week and make sure that they weren't getting attacked by the Taliban? Those are the things that I wish I had a camera for, to share with the community now, to say, hey, look, this is why you should join the military. That's what I wish I could tell people. This is why you need to join. That's why I stayed in.
I think you're right, but I also think that what they could do, the jobs that transition, from the military, obviously medical jobs. If you join in the military and you're in any medical position whatsoever, you are absolutely going to be sought after. Because the truth is that if you are in the military, and let's say you are let's say you are a emergency room technician. An emergency room technician in Logan County, West Virginia, has nothing compared to what an emergency room technician is doing in Baghdad ER. In terms of trauma, the most sought after people on the planet are those that wore the uniform.
Correct.
But we got to figure out ways how we can, some of the most intelligent people that I ever knew and met in the military were infantrymen, and that's a fact. But we've got to do more for some of these jobs to be able to make sure that our infantrymen, our combat engineers, are obtaining new skills that they could use on the civilian side. Because the truth is, nobody's looking for people to blow doors off the hinges. Nobody's looking for anybody to clear any roads around here for IEDs. So what do I bring to the table other than leadership? My leadership capabilities, as retiring as a person who was selected for lieutenant colonel, that's what people go, okay, the guy's got leadership capabilities. But as far as a sapper, I have never once heard somebody say, you know what, we really need somebody to blow some doors off the hinges. So we can do better. We can do better.
I agree, because nobody's looking for my sniper skills. Nobody's looking for my javelin missile skills. Nobody's looking for this and that. They're looking for my operational strategic skills, my command and control skills, my fire direction skills, my calibration of electrical optics to make sure that a packaging line can succeed, and chemical mixtures to make sure that things don't blow up on people. Those are the things that will make things successful, along with, like what you talked about, the leadership skills. because when you're deployed, like I have from 2001 to 2013, we also understand that, you know what, we're also not the most relationable type of people either. And those are the other things the VA just doesn't teach us when we get out. So that's the other aspect of what we need to be able to fix.
We have standards that it's hard. Like when you get out of the military, like for me, when I got out of the military and I started working ROTC, heck, I was at the school every morning before they opened the doors. You know, I mean, it's just how it was. And if I saw, you know, a teacher do something that I thought was unacceptable, I mean, I was like, dude, really? You know, I mean, you have a standard. You know, we have a value system. And the truth is that on the civilian side, not everybody has those values. And that's one of the reasons why I got into politics, is because, you know, to me, integrity means a lot. And when I'm looking at politicians that are promising things and do nothing, you know, to me, they lie. When I look at a politician that I know has their hands in the cookie jar and threatens other people if they ever even think of stepping up to them, no. It don't go with me.
Yeah, I agree, because even our enemies know what a good unit looks like and what a bad unit looks like. And complacency kills. And you know what? There's a difference between an active duty unit and a National Guard unit. And I tell you, the things that I saw, you know, when I was relieved, I was disappointed because they were like, you know, I'm an E7 or whatever, and I'm an E5, okay? I worked my butt off to protect people and bring people home safely. And then the C7 comes in and says, you know what, I'll take 2 naps a day and still get a Bronze Star. And I was like, I'm glad I'm going home. And you know what? I saw him on the news 60 days later with 3 dead. And I was disappointed because he didn't listen.
Yeah. Well, you know, I will tell you that units are hit and miss. I've seen some National Guard units come over to Iraq and Afghanistan that were absolutely high speed, worked their butts off, listen, you know. And then I can remember, you know, there was an incident where one of my staff sergeants jumped out of a vehicle and had to do a tracheotomy on a 19-year-old boy's neck because they could not shoot, move, and communicate. They had left the wire. They had got past the Camp Taji area, and the vehicle in the rear started having maintenance issues, and nobody was doing 360. The gunners wasn't doing 360, and their radios wasn't even working, and the vehicles in the front drove off and left this vehicle puttering down the road. And as we was coming up behind it, here come a white van, jumped the curb, VBIB slammed into that Humvee, blew the gunner about 40 feet off the top of it. And that's the one that my guy did the tracheotomy in. You know, got the medevac landing, but the kid died on you know, being put on the bird. But the thing is that, you know, I hate to say this, but I'm sure that whoever that was, their family was told that their loved one died fighting for this country. But the truth is that the unit should have never been outside the wire. And sometimes you get units that go over there that they're just excited to be in a combat zone, and they just want to go see things. And a combat zone is not the place to go show and tell. It's not the place to go and joyride, because you will get people killed. You know, people don't understand, you know, how Iraq was. And I'm going to tell you, there were lots of times in Iraq where we were bogged down, and it was brutal. You know, 2004, 2005, you know, we had the surge. I mean, it was just, it was horrible. And we couldn't get anybody. And I can remember that the military lowered their standards, and they let people coming in that had them big old things in their ears, you know, that had make their ears droop now. Yeah. I mean, I saw soldiers that had their earlobes hanging down. I'm like, what the hell is that? You know, you saw soldiers with tattoos on their hands and their neck. And I'm like, holy shit. And they're like, well, you know, we needed soldiers, so we lowered standards. But the problem is that as soon as we got back on top of things, those were the first people that they targeted to put out. You know, and to me that was a shame, because they stepped up to the plate, at least, you know, when we needed them.
And some of the things that even I had to face is that I was qualified in what I was doing. All right, I stepped up to the plate. I was doing 3 jobs. All right, I knew exactly what I was doing when I transitioned while I was on active duty. If you put two and two together, and you figured out that I was whatever, great. You didn't need to tell anybody. We were still under don't ask, don't tell. And guess what? When it fell, it didn't include me. I still had to keep it secret. All right? But we had to move past that and complete the mission, and we did. All right? We had to save other people's lives. Our job and our skill set didn't require us to worry about our hair, our droopy ears, our tattoos, or anything else. If you were a person that could do the job and get it done, that's what mattered. If you were the lazy person who decided to take 2 naps a day and not complain about everything, that's the person I wanted to get out of this military service. But the problem was that they were buddy with their first sergeant, their E4, their E5, or their lieutenant, who they went to West Point with, or ROTC, or Annapolis, or Pensacola with, or wherever. And it was difficult to get them out. And that buddy system really hurt a lot of people, and it was even harder if you had family, because then you weren't single and out drinking with the boys or the girls to have a good time with them. So that definitely makes it even more discouraging if you're in the military and you're talking politics while serving. How does that even affect somebody who's serving? Because we've seen it where, during the DNC roll call, service members were in uniform. How can we discourage them from talking about politics while serving?
Well, I think it's hard. I mean, you have to be very careful. What is it called? Is it the Hatch Act?
Yes.
There's certain things that you can't do, but active duty military, there's certain things that you can't do as well. I don't think it's possible to keep people from talking about, politics in the military, but there's just certain ways about it. You can't. Officers can't get in front of their soldiers and talk about, all right, guys, it's election time. Make sure you support this guy or this guy. They can't do that. But right now, I really don't know. It is so frustrating to me when I see soldiers, that are showing their support for a particular candidate. And here's the thing, too. In the military, the armed forces, for the most part, lean towards Republican, and there was a reason for that. I can remember during Clinton, and I can remember being a paratrooper at Fort Bragg, North Carolina, getting in trucks, driving to Sicily drop zone, and then having that truck drive the center of the drop zone, and every 2 seconds somebody jumps off the back of the truck. And the reason for that was because of the cuts in funding. The last 3 months of every fiscal year, we ended up having to walk to training because there was no fuel. And that was brutal. And then here come a Republican president, and it was just like everything. You could have, money was no object. And the truth is that soldiers love that. They like being able to be told, we just bought all this stuff for this deployment, and just because we checked the global war and terrorism box, the next day they refund every single penny, and we got more money again to spend. So the average soldier thinks when a Republican is in power, we can get what we want. Now, what happens that is the downside of that is when we go to combat. And we get to combat, we're looking around, and we actually are intelligent enough to see the fraud, waste, and abuse, and we realize that that's what this is. There's no reason why we should have ever went to Iraq when we went to Iraq, when we invaded Iraq. And now we know that. They played the whole weapons of mass destruction, which absolutely was a complete bullshit. But I will tell you that, to me, when I realized that the United States government was paying Brown and Root, Halliburton, $200 per day per troop to eat. And I was like, are you kidding me? We're outside the wire all damn day. We're lucky to eat once a day in a dining facility, and they're paying $200 for me? And that was what was going on. And it was fraud, waste, and abuse. And hopefully people are smart enough to pick up on that and feel that that's unacceptable. But once again, you never know.
Yeah, yeah. I remember like right after I was getting deployed in October to go catch up with my ship and getting into Japan, then Hong Kong, then other countries I can't say of where I ended up in, and then finally getting onto my ship. And it was just like, it was expensive. And I was like, who's going to pay me back? My American Express was getting maxed out, and it was just boom. And the dispersing officer was just like, hey, if you voted for Gore, we're probably going to lose this war. And I was like, well, just make sure that Bush gets reelected. And I'm like, what do you mean? Just because we'll probably go to war with Iraq too, and then maybe Iran. I was like, where are you getting this? It's sort of like, oh yeah, it's all over Fox News. And I'm like, oh, okay, whatever. And then I started looking into all the policies way back then, and I was still a young, naive little kid. But I took a look at the policies and I realized what was affecting us and the climate change and what was going on. And I still stay abreast with what's going on overseas in Europe. And of course, in the Asian Pacific community, especially China, Russia, Korea, Australia, China. And it's devastating to see what's going on over there and what's about to happen here very soon if we do nothing, with them launching missiles at us. We are not prepared. And the Republicans just want to write a blank check to it, and it has to stop. I remember getting all this RFI gear, and I was like, normally I just remember just getting 2 or 3. Why do I need 8? Why do I have to carry this? Why do I have to mail 8 totes home, and put it in a storage connex and then pay to have it all shipped? I remember just having a sea bag and going, enough to fit in a coffin locker, enough to send to my parents in case I passed away. Here are my personal effects. Peace be with you. That was it. But now it's kind of like super excessive, and that's why I take a look at our platform and I say, look, are we the conservative ones, or are we the liberal ones, or the progressive ones that want to see the change in our future, and protect what we have and make sure that we have the technology and the capabilities to succeed in the next fight, because we're going to have to take it with us.
Well, yeah, you're absolutely right, and that's one of the things. We always prided ourselves and beat our chest because we were the light fighters.
Yeah.
I'm gonna tell you what. I ain't never seen a light fighter that hadn't deployed to combat that didn't go with 40 different connexes and 2 tough boxes and duffel bags. I'm like, yeah, yeah, whatever.
I agree. Well, we got our last question. Do vets have enough of a voice in the political leadership? And that'll be it. That's our last question tonight.
Actually, I don't. I think that politics and politicians play the "I love the veterans." I think that they definitely feel that they have to in order to ever get elected. But as far as a voice goes for veterans, I think that when we see things that go on in this country, and it starts to raise eyebrows. The level of homelessness, the level of suicide, the level of addicted veterans. I think that those are the things that make people start actually moving towards trying to come up with solutions. But the bad part about it is it takes addicted veterans to make people go, oh, okay, let's help them. It takes suicides to go, oh, okay, let's see what we can do. It should never be that way. We should have things in place. Before you send the first soldier overseas to combat, you have to understand that anybody that serves in combat, especially door kickers and people that squeeze triggers, it will go with them for the rest of their lives. And before we send soldiers overseas to do that, we should have systems in place to make sure that when they come home, they get addressed immediately. Because I'm telling you, and you know this as a combat soldier, it absolutely goes with you for the rest of your life. It is what it is. I have to take 250 milligrams of Cyriloquil and Trazodone every single night to be able to fall asleep. And if I fall asleep and I don't take it, I wake up an hour later and I look at the walls all night. And yes, we do have things. We have dreams. Sometimes things come back. I had forgotten an incident for 4 solid years, and one night it come back to me in my dreams, and I remember it happened. And I'm talking about putting a body in a cooler and everybody sleeping around the body because we couldn't get him out that night. We had to wait till the next morning before we get a helicopter in. Yeah. Those are the things that happen in combat, and those things go with you. And there's no reason why we should have veterans coming back here and having to fend for themselves. That's unacceptable.
Yeah, I completely agree. I've had some of the same incidences where, thankfully sometimes I would drown out the things that I've seen in the shower, and then flashbacks would just come back, and I'm like, how long have I been in here? So we completely understand. And this is why we gotta make sure that we take care of our veterans in the future and show them the pathway forward. Because no matter if they're joining the new Space Force, our Air Force, our Army, our Navy, our Coast Guard, our Navy and Army and Marines, that, they deserve to serve with dignity and respect. They're going to be representing us. They're going to be making sure that when they go somewhere, that they are the fighting spirit of what we've done past and present. So any closing remarks you want to be able to share, Richard?
For me, first off, thank you very much, Mia, for bringing me on here to have this conversation. Anytime that, I get the opportunity to speak about veterans issues, it's something that means a lot to me, and I know it means a lot to you. I just, for the people, I know we may not have a lot of people on here, but I'm sure that this will get shared and it will get seen by others. I don't know, I think that I'm proud that I served in the military, but, we have a long way to go. We have a long way to go in this country to make sure that we don't have veterans that find themselves homeless. We have a long way to go to make sure that our doctors on military bases are not medicating the problems, because that is an absolute truth that happens. We are having doctors on military bases now that are given 60 Oxycontins for a daggone knee that used to be, a bottle of Motrin. We've got to make sure that we do better for our veterans. And look, this just because a person didn't serve, sometimes people can think, well, we're tired of seeing all the veterans getting in the topic of conversation. But the truth is that until you've lived a life and walked a mile in the shoes of a veteran, you have no concept of the things that we are expected to do, the things that we are expected to suffer through, just you name it. So, it's important that everybody out there, if you know a veteran and you know that veteran is struggling, don't just sit silent. Do what you can. Recommend that veteran to a veteran center, and if you have to, take the veteran to a veteran center. There's no reason why a veteran, if you're homeless, stop in at a local VFW or an American Legion, because they raise money, and if they turn you down, you need to report them immediately. There's no reason why they can't put you up for a couple nights until you can get back on your feet. That's why they people pay dues and people buy their drinks in their alcohol and bingo halls. So that's it.
I completely agree, because you've definitely touched on the homeless issue a lot, and of course the saddest thing is someone taking their life. Veterans are at a suicidal risk higher than anybody else, and we have to be able to make sure that you do a battle buddy check. Make sure that they're okay. Make sure that they're not over drinking. Make sure that they're not popping those pills and everything else, and get them the help that they need. Because I tell you, we've all been down that road. We've all seen what it's like. If you're a veteran, you're probably 1 in 4, 1 in 3, 1 in 10, 1 in 22. And we're thankful that we are here living to be there. Because you know what? I've slept on that parking garage floor. I've slept in train stations. I've given up a home. I've given up a car. I've given up everything to make sure that I could live the next day. And I've gotten myself fixed at the VA and stepped in and I said, you know what, I'm not going to let you take away my benefits in order to give me a place to live and give somebody else to take over my money so that I can, it just didn't work out. The VA wasn't going to, help me the way I wanted to. So I took control of it and I said, you're going to treat me right. I didn't want to be treated as a number. And we have to be able to teach our veterans to do the same thing. So take them to the American Legion, take them to the VFW, get them to the right people. They'll be able to fill out the paperwork and help them out. Let's take care of our veterans by honoring them and thank them for their service, regardless of their branch of service. With that, have a great night, everyone.
Boy. See you, man.
See you then.